Hi everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. In today's video, we're going to be doing another book of backgrounds, and we're going to be working on the back side of this piece. And we're going to be doing something a little bit different. There's a bunch of different stuff happening. Basically, what I'm looking at doing is I'm just experimenting with cracking art and crackling art. So I'm going to be putting some decoupage, some paper on there, and I'm going to apply some translucent colors with quinacridone magenta, translucent white, and then I'm going to put some clear crackle medium on there, let it dry for a day, then I'm going to come in with some antiquing cream. I'm going to go through all these in a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to gesso the piece, and I'm going to be using the Deco Art Media gesso with my number 8 bristle brush. And this one here doesn't matter about texture because all it is, the purpose for this is to prime the paper, because I am going to be collaging. And I'm applying this on dry. I did wet my brush. The less moisture, the faster it'll dry, and the less your paper will curl. Now when you're doing collaging, the medium doesn't really, I would say, affect what's going to go on there. Where you get an effect of whether or not you gesso or not is when you're applying paint. And I think I'm going to have to get another container. And we already saw from previous video what happens when I wear painter's glove on my hands. My fingerprints repel the paint, so I'm not going to be putting any of that on. Makes my hands harder to clean though. Alright. So while that starts to dry, I'm going to go over what we're going to be using. So I'm going to be using the it's a new product line from Deco Art, decoupage paper. And I already used up a sheet in here, which is this one here. We were using it as metallic paper as a resist. And we have some, and this one's called metallic type. And we've got these ones here. So I'm going to be using this one. I'm not using the whole sheet. So let's just tear it from here. Oh, just use the fold. Don't be so lazy. Move that aside. And I tore it because I want the distressed edges. You can cut it if you want. And this paper is really nice. It's nice and soft. Okay, it is a matte finish paper, and this one's here has a metallic. I did find though, if I'm doing decoupage on this, it's fine, but when I'm actually reworking the area by doing some rubbing and distressing, you have to make sure you seal it because the paper will come up. It's a paper product. Okay, you can even crackle it to get some stuff happening in there. So we're going to decoupage that on with the Americana decoupage. It's the paper medium. Then when that's dry, we're going to apply a layer of Deco Art Media Fluid Acrylics, the quinacridone magenta, super transparent. Let that dry. Then we're going to come on with a layer of translucent white. Let that dry. Then we're going to come on with a layer of One Step Crackle. I'm going to apply that with the palette knife. That's going to dry for 24 hours. Could be less, but I'm batching my projects when it comes to drying time more in the evening, so everything dries overnight. So, and then we're going to come in when that's dry. We're going to try some antiquing with English red oxide. All right, so let me heat set this. Not heat setting, I'm drying it. And let's place this. I'm going to go just a bit outside, and we'll just do that half there. like so. Okay, I can even collage this part here. Yeah, let's do that. All right. Oh, oh. And no, I haven't gotten my little containers yet. I keep saying I'm going to do that, and I never do. For years, literally for years, I've been saying, I gotta get little containers to pour this stuff in. Now, if this stuff happens to get on this side, it doesn't matter, because this stuff dries clear. And I'm also going to be applying a layer of this on the top to help protect the paper. I'm going to go just on the outside because I'm going to be trimming that down. And I'm going to get my texture tool. Let me make sure I get all the little pieces there. Now, if you get this stuff on your hands, don't get mad at me for not giving you a warning. This stuff is super, super sticky. Fantastic adhesive. I can just overlap that one like that. And overlap these pieces. Get some white space going on here. And because of the glare of the camera, I have a habit sometimes of missing some pieces. So hopefully that didn't happen this time. Okay, so a layer on top of everything. Doesn't have to be a super thick layer. And this I'm not going to heat set or heat dry with the gun. I'll let this dry naturally. Because this stuff here, because you've got medium underneath the paper, and you want nature to take its course with this stuff. Make sure I've got a good amount in there. And I want to thank a couple of ladies that mentioned one of my projects where I missed adding the medium, so I want to thank you for catching that. All right, that in water, that I'm going to put aside. So I'm going to let this dry naturally, and when we come back, I'm going to use the back of the brush to push that out. When we come back, we'll start with the painting. This actually works well too. Easier to clean than the texture tool. Okay. Yeah, that's a bit easier to clean than the texture tool. Pushes all the excess out. Oh, so there we go. All right, we'll be back. We're ready to put on some color now. And I'm going to put out the Deco Art Media Fluid Acrylic of Primary Magenta. Not going to need a lot of that. And some translucent white. And then I have my one-step crackle ready. I'm going to use a dry 12-inch brush, and I'm just going to apply a layer of paint the whole piece, and I'm going to get a dry cloth, and I'm going to wipe off as I go. That just helps distress it. Unless you want a more solid coverage, that's fine. And to do this technique, you kind of have to practice it. What I'm looking for is when the paint starts to get tacky. I already pulled up some of the paper in the corner. When the paint starts to get tacky, then I wipe it off. You can also use a baby wipe, but you may remove a bit too much. So where there isn't any paper, the paint just really gets, it goes on a completely different way. I'm going to put on some water. So with the technique that I'm doing now, I kind of think of it like sanding with a kitchen cloth. So I'm removing all the excess paint. And then what you can do from here is reach. Uh-oh, I think I need to refill that. And I'm going to take a baby wipe, but I'm going to squeeze it in a paper towel because it's at the bottom of the container and they're a little wet. And if I put the paper towel down and just kind of hold it for maybe 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, then I can pull off a little bit more paint and it really distresses it nicely. Because we've got I would say the barrier layer of the decoupage medium in between the paper and the paint, it helps when you want to distress it. Just don't overwork the area. See? Just going to rotate it. Because if you don't rotate, all you're going to be doing is taking that paint and moving it around. There we go. That's really pretty. I don't know if I want any white on there now. Okay, no, let's do that because we'll do the same thing. So that I can come in, and if I want to push this back a little bit more, and I'm just skimming the surface. And this step is completely up to you. You don't have to do it. I saw this technique. They had a display table at Home Depot where you do this on wood, and I really want to try doing that. And it's this technique right here. Well, I think it is. This is the effect you get. Not going to do the walls pink though. I don't think Joe would appreciate that. So you can do this as opaque as you want. You can even switch up the colors. You can even use gesso. This is just a background, remember. Not a formal piece of art. Although some of the backgrounds I've created have been so beautiful that they could stand alone as a piece of art. So one thing that you have to remember too is make sure you have some areas that have contrast. So if you're going to put antiquing cream on, which is what I am going to do, is I want to have some areas that are light, and then some areas where I'm not going to put antiquing cream on, I want some areas that are dark. You notice I'm not doing everything evenly. So I'm going to leave that one pretty dark there. There we go. And put that into the water. So before you put the before you put the one-step crackle on, it has to dry completely. So this will be an overnight drying thing, and you can still see the metallic shining through. That's already dry because it was such a thin layer. And because this is self-leveling, you don't want to go to the very edge. Okay, and if you're using thin paper, your paper is going to curl like crazy. So use something substantial to really hold your paper down. Dry it on a flat surface, because if your paper is like starts to curl like that, it's all going to drip off. And the other way, if your paper is like this, it's going to pool in the middle. So I'm going to apply it here. So anytime I'm doing something with one-step crackle, I make the piece a little bit bigger than I normally would. I could even leave it like that. It'll level itself out. Scrape that. And put a little bit in here. I'm not going to cover the whole piece. There we go. So I want to tilt this. I want to make sure I have a... So that's what I have in there. I can also, I don't know if there's enough, or if I put it too thin. If you tilt it, you can also get drippage, depending on how much you put on there, but it will level itself out. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry. How long, I have no idea. It depends on the environment. I could say with how thick this is, I'm thinking maybe 6 hours to dry, but I want to let it sit overnight. And if it dries sooner, then I'll come back to it and finish the video, but I'm going to let it sit overnight for now. Okay, so I will see you when that's ready. This was drying about 4 hours, and it started off as I was looking at it, it started off with the tiny cracks like this, and then the paper curled a little bit. You can see it's not perfectly straight, and this is where the very thick application was. You can see the really dark cracks here. Now I want to show you another piece that I did, and this was just to show you this is the antiquing medium, and there's different colors, and the antiquing medium specifically what it does is it gets inside the cracks, but you can also wipe it back, so you can rework it and rework it and rework it, and to wipe out as much as you want. So if I get a baby wipe, now this was left to dry with the antiquing medium for a few days. So some of it can still come off. Ideally what you want to do is you want to work it the same day. But you can just wipe it back, and all that's left is the antiquing medium inside the cracks, and that's what we're going to be doing here. Now there's different colors here. They look really subtle, which is the key to antiquing cracks, is if you want it subtle. And I'm going to be going with this color right here, which is English Red Oxide. But I also want to try the blue just to get a bit of a variety, and then I have the white as well. So I'm going to work the red, blue, and then the white in the middle. So put that aside. I'm going to stay with a close-up on this, so hopefully I'm not going to mess that up. I'm going to get some kitchen cloths. And let's see. This way. I'm going to take the English Red Oxide, and it's like an opaque version of, well, it's its own color. Opaque version of transparent red iron oxide. And I'm going to take a cloth. You know what? I'm going to get a bigger one. Bigger one. And you can apply it with a brush, or you can... Now I've got something on the back, so I have to be careful. You can apply it with a brush, you can apply it with a cloth. I basically start with the cloth, and then I work to a brush if the piece I'm antiquing is a little bit too delicate. Now this stuff here, okay, watch this here. I can actually crack it. It's not too bad here, but I can actually add more cracks. Now there's a whole bunch of little cracks in here. Because of that, this is flexible per se, but not to the extreme if your cracks are very heavy. In doing this, I run the risk of picking one of the pieces of the crackle medium to dry and pulling it off. So as I'm doing this, I'm being mindful of what the feeling is like, what I'm feeling the kitchen cloth as it's rubbing down on the surface. If I find that it's starting to grab or there's fibers coming up, then I'm going to change to a brush. And I might as well show you, applying it with a brush is no different than painting. And that's all there is to it. It's a little bit rougher on the brushes because you're going over cracks, so I wouldn't use my expensive brushes for this. Bristle brush would work. I'm rough on those to start. Okay. And then remove the excess, then I can move on to something else. Now there isn't any crackling medium there, but I do want to stain this a little bit. I want to bring that to the top. All right, now I want to work the blue, so I'm going to put that cloth in the bucket of water with 1000+ stain remover, and you get a fresh cloth. Very little crackling here, and I'm going to add just a little bit of the blue and then the white right along the border. Oh, we'll stick with a brush. Like I said, there isn't a lot of crackling medium here. And you can let this dry first, then apply the white, or you can go straight to work it wet on wet, which is what I'm doing. And this technique is one of those things where you really don't know what it's going to look like until you wipe everything back. And I know sometimes I'm getting off camera. I want to make sure I stay, that you get a good close-up so you can see what's going on. I'm going to take the white now. Go down into the blue. I'm going to flip the cloth over. And go into the blue. And now what we're going to do, we're going to let this dry, and then we'll get a damp cloth and we'll wipe everything back. There you go. So that's all dried. And I'm going to take a baby wipe. You can really see the cracks now. Now with a baby wipe, and very, very carefully start wiping some of this back. And see, it comes up. Oh, the cream stays, obviously, in the cracks. And you can wipe up as much of this as you want. Just make sure you keep turning the cloth over. That's why I wasn't too worried about when we were applying the white to this. That's why I wasn't too worried, because I knew we were going to be getting some antiquing in here. There we go. This one's a little bit hard to see. I'll grab a little bit of water. No, that's the paint. That's too much paint. Not enough contrast. But you get the idea. Like I said, you can wipe back as much as you want. And then when you're finished, when you've got what you want, you let it dry and then you seal it to protect the cracks. There we go. And because this is a book of backgrounds, I won't be doing any of that. I won't be doing any sealing until the end. I know that's, you know, my idea for this will require a little bit more work. And if I change my mind as to what I'm going to be doing with this, then I can seal it before I start working with it. But so that's it. So that's how to antique cracks in your book of backgrounds page. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I would love it if you would share in the comments below if you've ever tried using a Crackle product, what you've used, some tips and tricks for others that could learn from experiences. And I would love it also if you would share some pictures with me, so you can either email it to me or you can post it in our private Facebook group. It's a free private group with artists of all levels. Information to both of those can be found at my website at artplace.ca. So I hope that you enjoyed this. And if you want to see more videos like the book of backgrounds, just click the like on the video. And if you don't want to miss out on any of the new releases I do, just subscribe to my channel. That way you don't miss out on anything. All right, so there you go. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I'm going to clean up now and get ready for my next project. So until I see you next time, stay inspired.